All right, sports nutrition. I mentioned a little bit off the top there, Tyler. This is what we're going to talk about today because so many of us, we get into this regime and we're going to the gym, we're doing all this stuff because it's a new year.
It's the time.
And then we don't get the results we want and then we get discouraged. And right about this time of year, we start to drop off that regime.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of, like, I get questions all the time about, you know, do I have my protein before or after? What is the role of carbohydrates? I've heard every possible permutation of things that you could eat for different purposes, but there's some sort of basics that are standard. They haven't changed in a number of years. As opposed to like weight management specific exercise, we are talking more about performance and recovery. It's a bit different. If you're looking to lose weight, you're kind of trimming your calories down to fine levels and that type of thing.
Right, and you're probably not doing as extensive of workouts when if you're just sort of doing the calorie, you might be doing like some, but this is like people who really get in there and go. It's
a fine razor to like try to lose weight and still perform extremely well and still build muscle. They're kind of conflicting goals. So as far as carbohydrates go, carbohydrates, you know, normally everybody talks about, you know, those are things you want to avoid if you're trying to lose weight, which is somewhat true. But in terms of performance, especially at higher intensities, so when you're exercising, and a higher intensity is either a higher heart rate, so when you notice your heart rate is really climbing, and there are equations to figure out how intense you're working out, or if you're having difficulty breathing, when the point where you can no longer carry on a conversation.
That happens to me going upstairs.
Yeah, and you know, the more you get in shape, as your cardiovascular health improves, your ability to do more intense workouts with still being able to talk, you know, that improves. But basically, carbohydrates are the main fuel source that's used relatively quickly. So when you get to those higher intensities, the carbohydrates are going to keep your muscles going and your body running and that type of thing. So you should have this
before a workout?
Prior to workouts. And specifically more of your starchy foods. So I brought some examples like, you know, different types of cereal, but it could also be your starchy vegetables like potatoes, carrots, pasta is a big one.
Yeah, you often hear that. You can have a good pasta meal and before you do a major workout, and it's okay.
That's right. And you want to account for digestion. You don't want to be going into your, you know, you don't want to have it coming up in the middle of your exercise routine.
Pleasant.
But you should keep in mind that you have about 8 to 12 hours of good stores as well. So if you can store carbohydrates for a very long period of time in your system.
So if you had it for dinner the night before and your workouts the next morning, you
should be okay.
All right.
You want more of the simpler carbohydrates for if you're in the middle of a workout and you find your blood sugar is tanking. So say you're in a long endurance event and you find you're just starting to get lightheaded and lethargic, then you want to go for not your starchy stuff, but your simpler stuff like either dried fruit, juice, sports drinks, that type of thing.
Or a regular piece of fruit
Or a regular piece of fruit as well, yeah. It won't work as fast as the juice would because it'll have the quick instant rise in your blood sugar. But that's the general gist with carbohydrates.
And protein is very important as well.
Yes, protein is and this is what I get asked a lot, and it's a bit of a myth, is protein before workouts doesn't really contribute to performance at all. Your body doesn't readily use protein as a source of energy in high intensities. It's kind of, it's always using protein, but it's kind of like simmering in the background. It's not like a major fuel source. So protein is best for recovery after workouts.
Excellent.
So when you're doing like muscle training and you're causing micro tears, healing muscle is a bit like healing a broken bone. As you break it down during exercise, when it recovers, it gets bigger and the diameters increase, the strength improves. So protein basically contains all the nutrients required to fit into the gaps and fill out muscle and help it to rebuild.
So grabbing like a hard-boiled egg or a can of salmon, tuna, or whatever, or a yogurt after workout, even a protein bar is a good thing.
Yep, and animal proteins tend to be better in terms of the protein density. It's easy to find protein in animal foods, period. But also the quality is better. But if you had to go with a vegetarian or a vegan alternative, usually your nuts, beans, seeds, legumes, some whole grains, you can get protein powders like this, which are basically a combination of rice, pea, and hemp, which are very easy.
So a good nut mix after if you're vegan or vegetarian, not a bad idea.
And in terms of how much protein you should get, because a lot of people will ask, you know, how much protein I should get. The average person who's not working out is about 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. So if you know your weight in pounds, divide that by 2.2, and that's your weight in kilograms. Multiply that point by 0.8, and that's kind of like your maintenance level of protein. Now, if you're exercising, looking to either build muscle, or you're really big into an endurance events, that number can go up to about 1.6, almost double what the average person would need.
Okay. And you can Google this and find out a lot of this information online if you want to be that specific. The information's there for you.
And it's about 15 to 20% of calories, basically.
Okay. And what about fat?
Fat plays a lesser role. The biggest thing with fat is for performance, it doesn't have too much of a role. It has more to do with inflammation and recovery. So people who find they're getting a lot of aches and pains at the gym, that type of thing, a lot of inflammation and swelling. It's again, I feel like a broken record, but going back to your omega-3s, your high EPA omega-3 fats, and trying to eliminate or cut back on your saturated fats, like more of your animal proteins, which is a bit of a catch-22 because they're good for protein, bad for saturated fat content. That will help a bit, but as far as like fueling up on fat before a workout, it really won't do a whole lot.
And of course you want to stay hydrated, so lots of water.
Yes, that's a big thing. Even as little as a 2% reduction in hydration, you'll get lethargy, dizziness, lightheadedness, your muscle coordination won't be there. And a good rule of thumb, if you're wondering like how dehydrated you might be working out, is to weigh yourself right before a workout, and for every pound of weight that you're different at the end. Unfortunately, it's likely not fat weight. There's the difference between before and after workout. It's usually hydration.
Sure.
And for every pound, about 2 cups of water is basically at least what you should be adding to your workout to prevent that dehydration.
Oh, wow.
That's the water loss.
Well, that's good to know. And then there's some supplements that you can take as well if you want to add that on top of it.
Yeah, and with sport nutrition supplements, I really think there's a ton of hype in marketing. It's a whole other world in itself as far as sport nutrition goes.
Absolutely, I'm with you on that one.
It's a little crazy. I've seen words that are invented just to sell products. But these are some of the basics that stick around. I am a much more bigger advocate of using like whole foods for diet or for sport performance.
You always talk about that, but you do have some of this available.
There are some basics, yes.
And the biggest thing, come in and talk to you guys. If this is something you want to move into, I always say like anything supplements and things that you want to take, talk to the professional and know what your body actually needs, right, Tyler? All right. Full Circle Healthcare is where you can go for more information. You can check in with them at 131 Upper Centennial Parkway and Stony Creek. You can give them a call, 905-930-7769, fullcirclehealthcare.ca, and you can also follow them on Twitter. They also have great workshops that happen, so you can check that out.